I want to start off talking about what I saw at Seahawks training camp yesterday. I went out there, put on some sunscreen, SPF 70 on my arms, SPF 100 on my face, because if you don't know, I am exceptionally pasty. And while it's early, and the only things that should be newsworthy coming out of training camp are when guys are terrible, I like what I'm seeing out of the Seahawks offense thus far. Paul, you are such a homer. Maybe. But all of the things that you want to see out of an offense that has a new offensive coordinator, they're on display. You're also hearing good things. You hear a lot of good things. This is hype season, trope season, etc. But one of the big questions that I had about Shane Waldron going into this year is that there have been very few quarterbacks that are good in this league who have all of a sudden seen, after a season of failure, a new offensive coordinator hire with zero previous experience as a coordinator, as a head coach, or having worked with said quarterback before. And Shane Waldron, that is a guy who has not been a coordinator before. He has not been a head coach before. He has not been working behind the scenes with Russell Wilson before. So there's some real reasons as to why maybe things wouldn't work out so well. But I heard a good thing out of Gerald Everett yesterday, tight end for the Seahawks. He was asked about Shane Waldron as offensive coordinator and what he's bringing over from L.A., if he's similar to what he was with the Rams. Here was his answer.
I think Shane's always, had that responsibility in him. Even in L.A., he was more so the OC. I mean, McVay, he had the head coach duties, but Shane was the one in the box, calling the plays and, reading the defenses. So in practice, I saw who he was, but, now that he's here in Seattle with me, he's definitely going to step into that role.
Calling plays. That's something that you want out of an offensive coordinator, generally. And Pete Carroll also acknowledged, while Shane Waldron is new, he's not worrying about Waldron and a play-calling lack of experience.
For the most part, we get so much work done, and these guys have been doing it their whole life. It doesn't mean that they haven't called stuff in their brain and haven't called stuff in scrimmages and games. Shane's called stuff before at their place, in L.A. and preseason for sure, and so he seems very comfortable with it. But you still got to get out there and you got to get in all the situations, and he hasn't been able to do that yet. We'll do everything we can to present the opportunities to get that done, but there'll still be some newness. I don't know how he can avoid that.
It's a slow process installing any offense. In training camp early on, generally, especially before things get into full padded practices, it is an offense trying to figure itself out, while defenses generally have the edge early on. And I don't know that that was necessarily the case with what we have seen in non-full pad practices, but it does feel like the Seahawks are slowly breaking into what they might be trying to do in 2021. And what I mean by that is you aren't seeing necessarily a whole lot of diversity with the offense, but I think this is actually a good thing. What was one of the things that the Seahawks offense struggled with last year? Russell Wilson struggled with last year. It was just taking advantage of things that were short and intermediate. And what we've seen, if you've been out there at camp, has been, I think, lightning quick plays. Like, they're just getting the ball out as quickly as possible. Short passes to tight ends, passes to the flats, slants, seam routes in the red zone. They're getting the ball out quick, and I don't know if it's a concerted effort to make Russell Wilson take a look at what's in front of him as opposed to, doing the things that he is so good at doing, chucking it deep. And he did have a beautiful deep pass to Tyler Lockett, who made a nice diving catch on the right sideline early on in 11-on-11s, what they had yesterday. But it felt like Russ was just focusing on what's in front of him. And that's something that you need to see happen. And there were a couple of moments, too, where you saw DJ Reed lined up against DK Metcalf. And I know that if this was an actual game that Russell Wilson would be looking DK Metcalf's way, there's a massive height discrepancy between the two. We're talking 6 inches almost. And there was a little bit of annoyance, it looked like, coming out of DK Metcalf running down the field. At one time having a clear step on DJ Reed, and Russ was just trying to get the ball out quickly. But I'm cool with that. Take the baby steps. Take what's in front of you first, because that will potentially open up things downfield for the Seahawks. And I don't think they're going to get away from, throwing the ball down the field the way that they have for all of these years. But they need to be better in the short range, and they need to find out ways to get the ball out more quickly. So I feel like you're seeing that. You're also seeing different concepts offensively, which I just love. I think that the jet sweep motion is great. I think it creates misdirection for defensive linemen, for linebackers, and just that split second of hesitation. For some quarterbacks, it's not going to be that much of a difference. For Russell Wilson, it makes all the difference in the world. So I liked seeing that incorporated into the offense. As far as other things that I saw at training camp, I don't want to make too much out of things when they're not fully padded. Colby Parkinson flashed yesterday. He looks huge. He got a lot of targets. He got a touchdown pass in the end zone in traffic. He had a long run after the catch over the middle of the field, too, where he looked a little bit like Rob Gronkowski in the open field, just running. And you're like, whoa, that guy's really big, but he's actually moving pretty fast. He is huge, and if they can find a way to get him to take a big leap forward this year, wow, that would be incredible. But uphill battle for him. Gerald, Everett, Will Dissly. So, again, take everything that you hear about guys that aren't the primary receivers, players going into the year with a grain of salt, because anyone can flash, especially right now where everyone's in shorts. One last thing. I can't really figure out what's going on at cornerback. They're mixing and matching things. That means that they like the competition, I would imagine, and it's not like guys out there are struggling. It's early. Again, you got to keep that in mind. Defenses are going to be ahead of the curve when it comes to how they go up against offenses, but you saw Damarious Randall, a guy who used to play cornerback back in the day for the Green Bay Packers, pick 6 Russell Wilson. You saw Akhello Witherspoon on a corner blitz, basically Dikembe Mutombo'd, Geno Smith. Trey Flowers made a play. I mean, there was a trick play that Seattle was trying to run with, and Trey Flowers stuck with this guy the whole way, made a great play deflecting the ball up. Quandre Diggs came in for the interception. So some nice things that you're seeing out there. But today's the big day for me. This is the big day where you get to focus on what's going on, first off, with the linebackers that they have out there and also your defensive linemen, because they're going to be finally fully padded. And I want to see what Darrell Taylor can do. I want to see if Robert Nkemdiche or Aldon Smith still have something left in the tank, because those are your lottery tickets that you're hoping can potentially turn into what they used to be in Aldon Smith or what they could have theoretically been in the case of Robert Nkemdiche.